but to speak about what he has found, please welcome Patrick Duff.
Well, about 2 years ago, my wife went away to Thailand. She's actually from Thailand. And as every good wife will attest to, if you go away for too long, your husband is bound to get in some type of trouble. Now, Mr. Lewis here is one that believes, as I do, that there is bad trouble and then there is good trouble. And this is a story about some good trouble. And what happened was I was listening to conservative radio, and I was tipped off to an event that was happening in Maple Shade, New Jersey. So I began to do a little investigation into Maple Shade to see the history and the past of the town, to see if I can identify why this event had happened. What the event was these two young children from Rwanda were going to be tested by the school nurse, for Ebola 3 times a day. They were literally going to be taken out of the class and ostracized, as if being from Rwanda and being an exchange student wasn't already difficult. Now you're going to be tested for Ebola. So I said to myself, something's wrong here. This is something that needs to be investigated and maybe needs to be highlighted and pushed forward in the media somehow. So when I investigated the town, I couldn't believe what I found. I found that on June 12, 1950, Dr. Martin Luther King entered a restaurant called Mary's Cafe. Now, when he entered this restaurant, he entered with a gentleman named Walter McCall, which is his best friend, a Philadelphia policewoman named Pearl Smith, who, by the way, in 1950, an African-American Philadelphia policewoman is history in itself, and a Philadelphia social worker named Doris Wilson. And when they entered this restaurant, they just wanted to sit down and get something to eat. They just wanted to do what we all normally can do every day, sit down and order some food. But nobody approached them. Nobody came to them to give them the service that they needed to have something to eat. And not only that, the restaurant owner decided that he would come over and tell them it's time for them to leave. Well, they decided they weren't going to leave. So in a sense, the first official sit-in that Dr. King had ever been involved in is in Maple Shade, New Jersey. Okay? Now the restaurant owner became infuriated, and he grabbed a gun. And he pointed the gun at King and his friends, and they still refused to leave. Okay? Dr. King knew of a law that was enacted in 1947 here in New Jersey with the new New Jersey State Constitution that refused, or the refusal of people based upon their color was illegal. And the person that made sure that that law was implemented and put into the New Jersey Constitution was Dr. Ulysses Wiggins, who there's Dr. Ulysses Wiggins Park down here in the street. So what happened that night is Dr. King had to call somebody for help. In an article that Mrs. Hunt, her father-in-law, is quoted as saying that he had to call some doctor to come and get them out of trouble in Maple Shade. Well, little did we know when I first read that article, but that doctor was Dr. Ulysses Wiggins. I found 2 articles subsequently from the Philadelphia Tribune that showed Dr. Wiggins was present with Dr. King at his at the hearings for what happened in Maple Shade. That Dr. Wiggins is the one that helped him navigate these waters that were uncharted by Dr. King. And that his attorney for this event was Robert Burke Johnson. Now, I don't know if you know the history of Camden, but right at the waterfront is Dr. Wiggins Park. And the interesting part is Martin Luther King Boulevard begins at Wiggins Park. And Robert Burke Johnson was the first African-American ever to be elected to the Camden School Board, and also the first African-American ever to be the New Jersey Supreme Court Justice. So you're talking about people in history that have changed the world and changed the city, who were directly involved with the first civil rights incident that Dr. King had ever been involved with. So just so you understand my point of view, what happened to me is when I approached Maple Shade, I said, Maple Shade, you need to memorialize this in some way. Maybe put a plaque up, a park, whatever it may be. They told me I needed to find more information. So on January 15th, Dr. King's birthday, 2015, I was looking through a book, and on page 328, I found the police report from Maple Shade, the actual police complaint signed by Dr. King. Now, I had read all the history books and read all the biographies, and I noticed an address that was on the police complaint. And it was 753 Walnut Street, Camden, New Jersey. And I said, wait, that's not in the history books. I think I may have found something here. So I went to the tax records office and I found out that a Jeanette Hunt owned the home. And Kelly Francis and I contacted him and I said, hey, do you know a Jeanette Hunt? He said, well, she's a lifetime member of the NAACP. So Kelly and I went to her home that day, knocked on her door. It was January 18th. It was Dr. King's holiday. And she let us in. I'll never forget. She was doing she was working on her degree in pastoral counseling at 83 years old, working on her degree in pastoral counseling. And I just asked her a simple question. I said, ma'am, did you happen to know Martin Luther King? And she looked at me and very nonchalantly said, well, he used to live in my house. So from there, I collected more information. I filed for historic designation with the state of New Jersey. I filed with the city of Camden. I have done quite a bit of work ever since then, and now I have the V8 behind me, Mr. Norcross. Before I was just working on about 2 cylinders, and the power of Mr. Lewis coming here today is just incredible for me. So just so you understand where this came from inside of me, is I'm not college educated, okay, but I am a dad, all right, and I have a 6-year-old, and he's half Thai, okay, I call him Thai-ish, Thai-ish. And I want my son to know that you don't need a college education, you don't need to be rich, and you don't need anything but the passion in your heart to make changes in the world. And if you are in the right, and you know you're in the right, as Congressman Lewis did, and he would take a billy club to the head, the word no is just one step to a yes. So continue on your path. Okay, persistence always wears down resistance. And I appreciate all the help that's coming forth here today. Thank you, Congressman Norcross, for your help and for your leadership. Thank you, Mayor Red, and especially thank you, Congressman Lewis, for standing up when other people decided that they would sit down. And a lot of people don't realize Dr. King was very unpopular before his death. Okay? So the celebration of this is not just so you understand, it's not just a celebration of his first civil rights event. Right across the bridge is where he found nonviolence. 1950, at the Fellowship House at 1431 Brown Street, is where he found nonviolence when Mordecai Johnson preached about Mahatma Gandhi. Well, that building is no longer there. It's gone. The dorm room that he lived in, nobody can visit. It's not accessible. The building may even be gone soon, the old main building. The restaurant where it happened in, it's gone. The only remaining property that we can attach to Dr. King and teach about the important significance of his time in this area is 753 Walnut Street. So I appreciate the help, I appreciate you listening, and thank you very much.
As Paul Harvey used to say, and that's the rest of the story. You remember Paul Harvey, so I guess